Hey, what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be talking about more of my all-time favorite audiobooks. I am someone who absolutely loves audiobooks. At any time you could ask me what audiobook I am listening to and I have an answer for you. I listen to them while I'm getting ready in the morning, whenever I'm driving, walking someplace, working out, doing some type of menial task like cleaning, or even sometimes before I fall asleep. Audiobooks have absolutely changed my life as a reader. I'd highly recommend giving them a try if you have not before. If you are looking for more recommendations, I do have another all-time favorite audiobooks video that I posted quite a long time ago, so I'll link that down below if you want to check it out. As I talk about audiobooks a lot on my channel, I frequently get asked how people can listen to them, and one of my favorite apps to do so is through Libri, who is kindly sponsoring this video. Libri is a free app where you can access your public library's collection of ebooks and audiobooks. The majority of libraries in the United States are connected, and even thousands more internationally. It works like a regular library where you can borrow books, place holds on ones that have long waiting lists, or even read and listen to samples before checking out, all from your Apple or Android device. Personally, Libri is an app I've been using myself since 2017. I probably have been listening to like 1 or 2 audiobooks a month since I started. It's one of the first places when I go to look for a new audiobook to listen to, whether I search up the title of something I'm interested in, or if I don't have anything particular in mind, I will just set to whatever's available and scroll until I find something that interests me. I truly love Libri and was so excited that they wanted to work with me for this video. It is a great way to read books for free and also support your public library, which is immensely important. So if you'd like to give it a go, check out more information on Libri in the description. Now let's dive into the books. So I do not think the first book on this list is going to be a surprise to anyone who has been watching my channel this year, but it is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is narrated by Jennifer Beals, Benjamin Bratt, Judy Greer, Pablo Schreiber, and a full cast. It is an oral history documenting a fictitious band called Daisy Jones and the Six, and it is the band's first time ever telling the truth about how they got together, what it was like at the top of their careers, and why they broke up so suddenly. Because this book is an oral history, it is entirely dialogue, and it is just a book that feels like it is meant to be heard. The full cast, meaning each character is designated their own individual actor in the production, just really helped to make these characters who are so iconic very distinct, especially because the actors fit the roles and the voices fit the characters so perfectly. And they do such a great job of actually telling the story and making it feel like you are listening to real interviews. Their pauses and breaths and emotions and just the natural aspects of speaking in real life that get lost in audiobooks really shine through here. I just get so lost in this audiobook. I recently listened to it for the 3rd time, and this book came out in March of this year, but each time I start it, I just feel like I fall into this Daisy Jones hole where it is the only thing I can think about or do until the book is over. For so long, I was like, I just gotta read it one more time before the end of the year, and then I got to that 3rd read and I'm like, maybe I need a 4th. Obviously, this is a story that can be enjoyed just by reading it. It's just, in my personal opinion, the audio version is really where it's at its strongest. If there's like one audiobook recommendation you're gonna take from this video that you haven't already read, Daisy Jones and the Six is the one for you. I don't want to spend too much time talking about books by the same authors, but I will also recommend the audiobook for The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is narrated by Alma Cuervo, Robin Miles, and Julia Whelan. This is another historical fiction novel about a Hollywood starlet from the 1950s who hires a small journalist to write her tell-all story. As with Daisy Jones, I have nothing but good things to say about this audiobook, but the one thing that really stands out to me is that it works so well because the majority of the story is Evelyn telling her story verbally to Monique. So sometimes you get really immersed in it and it feels like a flashback, and other times you feel more grounded in reality as if this person is telling this story exactly to you. So it's another really cool experience. I'd highly recommend this one as well. My next all-time favorite audiobook is just absolutely stunning, and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This audiobook is narrated by Rebecca Solar, who is my favorite audiobook narrator, Fred Berman, Dan Bittner, Gabra Zachman, and a full cast. This is a super unique young adult mystery thriller that's sort of alternating between two different perspectives. The first follows Sadie, who is off searching for her sister's killer in order to get revenge. And the second comes from a radio personality named Wes, who gets invested in finding out what exactly happened to Sadie when she disappeared. So with Sadie, we follow her inner monologue as things are happening to her, and with Wes, we are following him in this sort of podcast format where he is reporting on what he is learning and conducting interviews. The balance of that, along with the different timeline as Wes's part of the story takes place after Sadie's, all of it was just balanced really well, and it felt like a very cohesive experience. And what is so striking about this book to me is just the audio production and detail put into this performance is next level. I can't promise the examples I'm about to give were actually in the audiobook or if it's just in the general sense of what was included, but everyday mundane sounds like weather and traffic, police sirens going on, and people talking in the background, they all give this book such like this authentic atmosphere that really adds to the story. It's a total one-of-a-kind experience for that reason, and it is such a quick read. It's like an 8-hour audiobook, so I'd highly recommend checking it out. Next up, I have a middle grade audiobook that I am extremely excited to recommend, and that is Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the story of a girl named Morgan who has spent her entire life believing that she is cursed and that she's destined to die on her 11th birthday. And when these shadow creatures are coming after her and it seems like that is going to come true, she is swept away by a man named Jupiter North who brings her to this place called Nevermore. And so Morgan begins to compete alongside a bunch of other children to win a place in the Wonder Society, which may be the place that she finally belongs. It is narrated by Gemma Whelan, and it is just absolutely fantastic. I know a lot of people stray away from middle grade because they think it's children and it's not going to be in their range, but I guarantee that there is just so much love to find in this story, especially if you listen to the audiobook. It is such a vivid, colorful story. There are so many rich descriptions of the characters, the city of Nevermore, the magic. It is just so easy to visualize and imagine in your head. I've recommended a lot of full cast recordings already in this video, but Gemma Whelan does an incredible job of making up different voices for each character that are so distinct and different from one another. It is so boring when an audiobook narrator uses the same voice for the entirety of the story, but Gemma Whelan brings something new to each character and just really knows how to assign their personality to how they sound. It is immensely entertaining, so whimsical and magical, and it's just one of those audiobooks that will leave you with a smile on your face and an inability to put it down. So if you're looking for a fun-filled fantasy read, Nevermore definitely should be the next one you pick up. My next favorite audiobook series is the Arc of a Scythe series by Neil Shusterman and narrated by Greg Tremblay. I listened to both Scythe and Thunderhead through the audiobook format, and to be honest, there's nothing particularly special about them. It's one narrator, there's no full cast, no funny voices, no sound effects, but it was just an overall really good performance. The narrator's voice is honestly really relaxing and so easy to listen to, which like in itself is already a win because there are some irritating audiobook narrators out there. I just found myself listening for hours at a time because I was so entranced by the plot and storyline that I didn't want to exit this world. There are definitely some books that can be improved by the audiobook format like Daisy Jones, but with Scythe, this is definitely like a story that stands on its own, and it's an audiobook that just like happened to be really good as well. You know, audiobooks don't always have to be doing the most. Sometimes all you need is a good book and a good storyteller, and it can take a very typical audiobook into like a very memorable experience. And Scythe is a perfect example of that for me. My next all-time favorite audiobook is one that definitely caught me off surprise. It's not one I ever expected to be on this list, but that is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, which is also narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is actually one of those situations situations where I had no idea what I wanted to read next, so I just searched through what young adult audiobooks were available then, and honestly, I don't think I ever would have read The Poet X if it wasn't there for me to choose that day. The Poet X is an award-winning book written in verse, and it is the coming-of-age story following a girl named Xiomara as she deals with different topics like race, sexuality, religion, and growing up as a woman. Because it is written in verse or poetry, that was very daunting for me. I had never read a book like this before, so I put it off for a very long time, but it's actually the audiobook that really made this book so impactful. There's just always something so special about listening to a book that is narrated by the author, because everything about the book, like every character's tone and inflection and emotion, comes across the exact way it was written. And also, Elizabeth Acevedo just has a voice like honey. Her accent is so warm and comforting. It's like being wrapped in a little blanket. I could listen to her speak all day long and not get sick of her. She just has one of the most beautiful voices I think I've ever heard. It was honestly just like being told a story by a friend. It was such a lovely experience. And also, my final selling point for why I think other people should listen to this audiobook, even if you're like me and was like a little unsettled by the format, but it is so short. It is only 3.5 hours, which I think is probably the shortest audiobook I've ever listened to. It is super quick and engaging. You could probably listen to it in one sitting. So it is one that is just absolutely worth giving a try. And my final favorite audiobook is You by Caroline Kepnes, which is narrated by Santino Fontana. I'm sure you have at least heard of You. There's a really successful TV adaptation now on Netflix, which is also incredible. It follows a man named Joe and his secretive stalking of a woman he is trying to date. It is definitely very screwed up and twisted, but I personally found it so entertaining, and especially in the audio format. The book is written in second person, where Joe is speaking directly to the woman that he is stalking. So the whole time you're listening to it, you're hearing about this guy watching you and stalking you and following you and threatening you. It was very freaky. It really added to the unsettling factor that is natural with this book, and while I do feel like this is a story that I would have enjoyed had I read it physically, it is one of those cases where I feel like the audiobook really enhanced my reading experience. And I also feel like the voice actor for this book was perfectly paired, because he is just so good at conveying what Joe is feeling and making it very convincing. Whether he's happy, hurt, angry, scared, betrayed, or murderous, whether he's faking his emotions and knows that he's doing it, the author just does such a great job of picking up on the subtext of the book and conveying that through his performance. If you're someone who likes being creeped out, I'd really recommend giving it a try, and if you're someone who's a bit more of a scaredy cat, I'd maybe stay away. Everyone, regardless of who you are, stay away from Hidden Bodies, because the sequel sucked. That is it for my updated list of favorite audiobooks. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I love listening to audiobooks, and I especially love finding ones that really blow me away. So in the comments below, I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned, if you've listened to the audiobooks as well and what you thought, or if you have any recommendations you'd love to share with me. I am super willing to take them. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon for a new one. Bye!